Join us for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been a year, but way longer than that. All right, all board members present, and we'll start the meeting at 6:30. Need an approval of the minutes from the April board meeting.
I move to approve the board minutes.
Support. Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of minutes scheduled for, minutes. Everybody, by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say. Alright, now we move on to the branch items, budget presentation. There she is.
It's me.
How are you?
I'm good. I don't want to stand in front of anyone. Okay, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to review our budgets and the narrative, including the assumptions that were provided to you. The school code does require your school board to review the ISD general fund budget and submit a resolution in support of the budget no later than June 1st, or if you have any objections, providing those to us. We always include our special ed and our BOED budgets for your information only. You are not required to approve those. Like I said, they're just for your information. And just a reminder, all of our funds are constrained by law, and so we can't commingle funds, so therefore we can't use BOED funds, for instance, to pay for special ed expenditures and vice versa. So the version of the budget that you received was prepared early April. That gives my board the opportunity to review the budget before it is provided to you by the required deadline of May 1st. So at the time of preparation, there's a lot of unknowns, including the state aid budget. We've seen the governor's proposal back in February. A couple weeks ago, we saw the House and Senate fly. Their versions of the budget, they all are a little bit different depending upon their priorities. The next big step in the budget process, though, is going to be held on Friday. That is the May Revenue Estimating Conference. At that conference, we will hear from the state revised estimates of revenues for next year, and then that will be the basis that they will use to finalize the state budget. So hopefully we'll hear more information and have a budget in place by the state by July 1st. So at this time, I'm just going to take some time to explain some of the assumptions that I used in preparing the budgets. So at the time the budgets were prepared, we didn't have our taxable valuations yet from the county. And as you know, increases in taxable valuations are constitutionally limited to either the inflation rate or 5%, whichever is lower. The inflation rate was 7.9%. So taxable valuations were limited to the 5%. So that is what the basis that I used in increasing our taxable valuation revenue. State aid, like I said, we don't have a state aid budget yet, and even though I'm confident we're going to see some increases, at this point in time I have budgeted state revenues flat. Federal revenues, with the exception of our Head Start grant, we don't have our current allocations yet, so those are budgeted at the 22-23 levels. Our collective bargaining agreement does expire June 30th, so we are in the process of negotiations right now. So we've not obviously settled, but I am aware of any employees that are eligible for their steps or lane changes or longevity, so I have included those in the budgets. The ISD is a hard cap district for PA 152, which limits the amount of money that the district can contribute to employees' health insurance. And there was a 1.3% increase in the hard cap from last year, so that has been included in the budget. We do know that retirement rates are gonna increase by about 3% come October 1. There is rumor though that the state is going to include some additional revenue in the state aid budget to help offset those expenditures. So moving on to general fund. Approximately 84% of the general fund is made up of grants. So therefore the revenues equal the expenditures. The balance, the 16% balance represents expenditures from our superintendent's office, shared services for business fiscal, technology, board of education, and pupil accounting. I also wanted to highlight to you many of the expenditures in the general fund that directly impact your district, which includes the GSRP and Head Start programs. We have programs in each of the local districts that provide services to your pre-K students. We also have a coordinator that provides support to your 31N providers. And as a reminder, your 31N providers provide mental health services to support your gen ed students. Some of the other supports we provide, we operate the adult education program. We employ 2 early literacy coaches, which share their time between all of the districts. We also are the fiscal agent for the McKinney-Vento Homeless Grant, which are provided services. We also employ a truancy prevention advisor. And then the pupil accounting audit, the ISD does pay for that cost on behalf of all of the local districts. We also have a financial agreement with CISD that provides instructional services not only to the ISD, but they also provide them to the locals. And some of those supports that they provide are school improvement supports, instructional supports, school system supports, and leadership supports. So that is all paid for by the ISD, and all the locals have the opportunity to take advantage of those. So in general fund, our tax revenues equal 83% of our local revenues. Also in local revenues, it includes our earnings on investments, and since October, interest rates have continued to rise. So I have increased earnings on investments. There again, state aid, state revenues are budgeted flat. Federal revenues is our federal Head Start grant is included there. And this Consolidated Appropriations Act did include an increase to the Head Start grant. So we are required to give those Head Start employees a 5.6% cost of living increase. And then we also did receive some quality improvement funds, just a little over $70,000, which we are going to also use that to help increase the wages and benefits for those employees. Our Head Start and GSRP employees are the lowest paid employees of the ISD, so even with this 5.6% increase, it barely gets them up to the level that some of our other staff are earning. So then moving on to special ed, local revenues, 92% of our local revenues represent tax revenues. Under expenditures, when this budget was prepared, it included the addition of a teacher at Max Larson and a teacher at Brunson High. But since the budget was prepared, my special ed director has informed me of many other new positions that he is adding to the budget based on numbers. So we will be revising the special ed budget to include 3 new paras at Max Larson, a new teacher at Max Larson, an additional teacher at Lakeland Elementary, an additional teacher at Lincoln, a new teacher at Jennings Elementary, and a new para at Brunson High School. Under support services, we
So
have
how many paras and teachers is that total?
in total, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new teachers,
Okay.
and then approximately 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 paras. Under support services, we have recently advertised for board certified behavior analysis. If we're unable to find one of those, those, we plan to either hire a teacher consultant or a social worker, but that is included in that budget. Under outgoing transfers, we budgeted $200,000 to be transferred to the Special Education Capital Projects Fund. In the 2016-17 school year, we set up that special fund because we knew in the near future we were going to have to incur some expenditures to improve our Waldron Center site. So some of the things that will be happening in the near future, we are going to be putting in a playground at the Waldron Center for our special ed students. They currently do not have a playground, so that is in the works. We're looking at some roof repairs. We need to replace the ramp at the Waldron Center because it is deteriorating badly. We're looking at putting in an overhang that the school buses can drive under so that when the weather is bad, if it's raining, our students in wheelchairs don't have to get wet. We're also looking at some major improvements to the parking lot at the Waldron Center. Also in outgoing transfers, we have budgeted some money for a special ed bus. Typically in the past, because Coldwater does operate the special ed transportation, they purchase the special ed buses and they get reimbursed by the state for 70% of the cost of those buses. And so we always had an agreement that the 30% would be then divided up between the ISD and 3 LEAs, which Coldwater did purchase 3 new buses this year. They have another one on order that will be arriving in the next fiscal year. But looking at our budgets, I made the determination that I felt that the ISD could cover that 30% next year, which therefore would be a cost savings to all of the school districts. And then the ISD also does receive federal Medicaid reimbursement for providing specialized services to our special ed students that are eligible for Medicaid. And including in that is some funding for specialized transportation. And there again, because Coldwater does operate the transportation program, we do flow those funds onto Coldwater. Next year we anticipate those funds to be in excess of $60,000. So like I said, that funding will go to Coldwater and that will help lower the cost that they then bill back to the 3 local districts. And moving on to the BOED fund, 98% of local revenues represent tax revenues. In our expenditures, we are adding a part-time electech parapro. And then under support services, there is $20,000 budgeted for career development. That is an opportunity for all of the 3 local districts to apply for funding to help offset some career development cost. So that $20,000 then is split between the 3 LEAs. And then the capital outlay replacement schedule. Our specific capital outlay needs are identified through a 3-year planning process. Part of that capital outlay budget does include $200,000 to help improve the ventilation system in the High Bay area at the Career Center. And then we will be making payment 6 out of 15 payments for our QZAP bonds. 6 years ago, we had a energy improvement project at the Career Center where we replaced we put in 2 new boilers and LED lighting, and that was financed through a QZAP bond. So like I said, we will be making payment 6 of 15. And then outgoing transfers include some funding to reimburse the local districts for the cost of transporting your students to the Career Center. And then also I've included a transfer to the BOED Capital Projects Fund in the amount of $100,000. That fund has been set up many years ago. We use that for projects that we know that are going to have to be taken care of in the near future, such as I know we're looking at the parking lot in the front of the Career Center is in bad shape, so we know we're going to have to do some work there. then, there's some carpet replacements that need to be made. I know there's some original tile in that building that needs to be replaced. So, that's what we use, the funding from when we have those projects, that come up periodically. So that's kind of just a quick highlight, of the budgets. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. If I don't know the answer, I will certainly find out and get back with you.
What kind of the bond did you say you guys got for your boilers?
It's a QZAP bond, but unfortunately, with the QZAP bond, they don't offer those anymore, but, what was nice about it is that, it's interest free. So we get the money, from the bank, they don't charge us any interest, and because we do actually have funds that we could pay off that bond, but because we aren't being charged interest, we keep our money in the bank, earn it, and just make the annual payment. So yeah, there's not the tax incentives with the QZAP bond is what they used to be.
So maybe about time for boilers, everybody got boilers.
How did the major construction project, is that finished up?
Pretty much, we still have a few little issues, here and there that need to be, taken care of. We've got, some roof leaks and so forth, but, yeah, pretty much everything finally has been wrapped up, so.
I never heard that they ramping up, I heard they were ramping up building trades, but is it still, are the numbers still going up for?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes, those numbers do continue to rise. I know there was talk at one time about adding a para, but I don't think we're quite there yet, but, yeah.
There's some gaps in some of those services. So it's nice to see kids get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you, like your per pupil funding, you said you left flat, how do you budget your, like head count for,
So,
like, special eds is what I'm thinking about?
yeah, so special ed is the only, those are the only students that we receive, any foundation allowance for.
Mhm.
So we're only talking maybe, 300 students.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm sure the foundation allowance is gonna go up, but, I'm just kind of holding off, because actually I will continue to make revisions to the special ed and the BOED fund, for the next month. So hopefully we're gonna know more information, so I'm just always, because I don't really need to bump up that revenue, at this point in time, because we do have, a healthy fund equity, I just prefer to wait until I know better numbers,
Sure.
so.
But are you budgeting flat to the 300 in head count as well? As the-
So it's the FTE,
Right,
the full-time equivalency, our FTE really doesn't fluctuate a whole lot.
Okay.
Because just as a reminder, we don't get the full FTE, I mean, if they're receiving gen ed services,
Mhm.
the local districts receive a portion of that.
So our special ed FTE seems to climb every year in Quincy. It's been the trend. So, but you say countywide, you see it as being flat.
Well, no, I don't see the numbers necessarily being flat, it's just that I'm not budgeting an increase in that foundation allowance at this point in time. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah,
And obviously, head count, yes, I agree that those numbers are going up, and that's why we're seeing the need to add all the
Sure.
additional staffing.
Anything else? Thank you.
You're welcome, and if you don't mind, I've got a dash to Brunson's board meeting, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That time of year. Brandon, you ready?
Bet. All right. So, as you can see, you can hear the music playing, so I'm sure a couple of you guys are kind of bummed they couldn't be over there dancing and celebrating the end of the track meet. But yes, we were throwing a handful of loops as we were getting prepared for it to be our month, because we had a track meet get rescheduled. I had a baseball player that rides with me every day to school that was going to be coming tonight, but then his practice got switched to a scrimmage or a game. So, but thank goodness our track meets moved pretty quickly here. So we, as you saw, some people coming right in uniform right after a race. Still pumping hard. That's dedication right there. So I'm gonna get them. I'm saving the best for last because they're the best. It just shows again I'm blessed and why I love my job. So as a few of these guys are gonna talk about our mentorship program that we partnered up with Jennings, and like I said, I'm gonna let students talk a little bit more to that because they're the ones that are doing it each and every day, every week. One thing I want to touch on is our credit recovery class. That was one of the things that we wanted to try the final marking period for some of our students that maybe didn't pass a class for various reasons. Honestly, there were about 6 or 7 different reasons. And so Mrs. Benson and Mr. Barnes have kind of partnered up on that. They switch off every couple of weeks and also teach a different class. So we kind of put the challenge to about 18, 20 students that are in there, and they're in an Edgenuity program trying to recover some credits and help them get ready for high school. And so I kind of dangled the carrot of, for the folks that will complete it, I will happily take you to Adventure Zone. So right now, I've got enough to at least fill my car. I'm hoping to have a bus. So we got people that are chugging along, which is amazing because that means they've done essentially a semester class in a marking period. So extremely proud of those kids, just because they could have been like, I don't want to do this anyways, but they're not. They're putting effort in. Some are working on it at home too, just to get it done. And I hope then that I can go kick some butt in laser tag and go karts with them. So, one other big thing I want to highlight is a lot of music. Our 6th grade band, a few weeks back, put on a special mini concert for our 5th graders. It's kind of cool. They just did it during the first hour down in our cafeteria. And so they had a lot of fun. The 5th graders loved it. It's a good recruiting tool for Mrs. Stout. And just it was kind of neat for our 6th graders. Maybe don't get to do as many things and got to kind of show off for the 5th graders. And I have a music tie-in, which Kendall is going to talk about here in just a minute. And then we also have, so this week we have our band concert coming up on Thursday night. Next Thursday night we have a recorder concert. So it's a lot of music in the last few weeks. And then it's, like I said, the ball player in my house was going to talk about Quiz Bowl. It was really cool that we got to have 6th grade teams, and our 6th grade teams have done very well. They went over to reading and won, went to Coldwater and won. Our 7th grade girls, which was great because they were like, I don't know. I hooked 1 or 2, and it was, well, I'll only join if I can bring these guys. Well, please do, because that makes a full team. And so they have, and they've gotten 2nd and 3rd in their 2 competitions. So it's a lot of fun. And again, it's nice because it's always fun to beat Coldwater and St. Charles and other schools, bigger schools or different schools and that. So it's good times. And then quick thing, celebration. So we had our newest Oriole to the nest, Miss Allie Jane Fisher, was born a few weeks ago. She's even been to a track meet or 2, a couple track meets, I think. So Mrs. Fisher's out there. And then if you see the picture of the door, we had to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week last week. Students did some amazing doors. Some are just thoroughly impressive. But for Mrs. Fisher's door, I forget, did any of you guys have anything to do with Mrs. Fisher's door?
No.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I didn't think so. But for Mrs. Fisher's door, they did Boss Baby. So in celebration of little Miss Allie Jane. So you'll see there, Mrs. Travelby has 5th and 6th graders. So they did a double feature. They did Major Payne and then the Super Mario Brothers movie. We had different ones with the Minions. Well, Mrs. Doubtfire, which is a good throwback. We had a handful of Shreks. One of my favorites that you can see as you go to high school, Mr. Barnes kicking and screaming. Some class, some pig. Mrs. Newsbaum's kid, and there were some kids that stayed after school multiple days working on some of these doors. So a little Home Alone reference. I get some 3D there. You can't totally tell by the picture, but some three-dimensional work there. Mrs. Paradigm was proudly taking on the Wicked Witch role. Mr. Leonard's room, of course, he's got his Tiger's minion. Mrs. Stout with the outhouse. And then Mrs. Maurer's class, her students really wanted Shrek's outhouse. So she said, all right, go for it. The door does open. It is a pretty good replica of Shrek's outhouse. Mrs. Talbot has the Bob Ross thorax, so protecting our happy little trees. Cool Dog, which was actually not a movie I knew, but actually helped the student get the picture. I'm like, what is this movie? Is this a really good movie? Okay. So Hamilton for Mrs. Kempter. And then, there we go, there's the Boss Baby. So, pretty impressive, pretty fun. Our winning door there was Mrs. Januska. They know how much she loves penguins, so they did Surf's Up.
Nice.
A lot of teachers complained because she actually has a little hallway. Sorry, tough luck. And then Miss Dean had Monsters Inc.
That's pretty good too.
That was, yes, pretty good. Baymax was pretty impressive on Mrs. Olson's door. And are you satisfied with your service? And then a little bit of Shrek again. And then what, especially from our 5th graders, this was extremely impressive. For Mrs. Bailey's class, being math class, they did Hidden Figures. I love it. If Mrs. Bailey says the numbers are good, you're good to go. So, and Mrs. Marshall with Wonder, one of the books that they cover each year, which is great. And yeah, so like I said, celebrating there. We also celebrated Mr. McCavitt doing his student teaching. That was very, very cool to have a former student come back and do his student teaching. I know he's jumped in and applied for a high school position. Kids loved him. 2 of my sons had him and raved about him. I mean, it was great. He just jumped right in and was part of the team. And then I know she'll get a little bit more celebration next month, but Mrs. Briner, retiring since she's with us for 5th grade. Again, just wanted to thank her for all she does for our 5th graders. And with that recorder concert next week, it's also masks. So the kids make these really sweet masks that they work on, for about a month and a half or 2, once or twice a week. Now with that, I'll turn it over to the much better part of the show. So I have Isaiah, if you want to come on up here with the girls. So I have Lillian, Natalie, I didn't call you by your sister's name, thank goodness, and then Ari and Isaiah. And I'll tell you, a couple of these guys are pretty quiet. So when I had hit them up to do it, and they're like, sure, I'll do it. Thank you so much. So there's some of our mentors that go down and work at Jennings. So I'll hand it over to you guys and talk about what you do and.
So pretty much every Tuesday and Thursday, a class of around 20 kids, we go out to elementary school, and each of us go down to our classrooms. Me personally, I go to a kindergarten classroom, and pretty much we just go in there and help out students with their assignments and just kind of be there for them, and almost as if we're friends with them. And I think it's really beneficial to both me and the kids, because me personally, it's really fun just to be around the kindergartners. And we also, they can learn from us, and it really brings me back to when we were in kindergarten and when we got to experience those simple days. And then also, kindergarten, we get to go out to recess with them. They don't run out of energy, it's crazy. And, yeah, so we're just friends almost, except we're there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Sounds like you get just as much out of it as they do.
I go to 2nd grade, and when I'm there, they're in the middle of math, which I love math. So it's really fun for me to get to walk around and help them with their math, because I love math. And a lot of them are really advanced, so it's not much of helping, it's much of advancing them more and giving them more information. in the class that I'm in, we do a lot of hands-on with like clocks and measurements. So it's fun to get to work with a group of kids and show them different things. And some days we go down to the library and some of the kids read to me, which I think is really fun because I like little kids and I like when they read to me. And I think that it's beneficial for them to get to have someone who they think is cool or an older kid to look up to on days that they're at school.
I'm in a second grade class, and when we get there, they're in the middle of math, which I also love. I've always loved math, but then we switch over to reading. And the other day we were reading the Magic Tree House, and I started to stutter, and they all started going, "Come on, what the heck?" They were all like yelling at me. But then we work on like money measurements and clocks. Like one day I was helping a kid with the money, and I gave him like the answer, and they had to subtract something from 100, and she kept saying the number that was subtracting. I'm like, "No, what's the answer?" And I even wrote down the answer. She kept saying the other one. I'm like, "No, it's this. Get it through your head." I didn't say that, but I was trying to give up the hint. Like, "No, this is the answer. Say it."
Just a little taste of your teacher, right?
So, yeah. Then whenever we walk in, they come up and hug us, and they all get excited. So.
I'm in a pre-K class, and then most of the time I'm never outside of recess, and they play lots of games. Again, they never run out of energy. They're always running around and everything. And then when we go inside, we usually read, and then we'll do the weather and math, and then they love hugs, and sometimes they'll do yoga, which is funny watching them do it because they're just going around everywhere. Yeah, I think they enjoy it because I think they like having older kids in their class that they can look up to and be around. And I think they just think it's fun. So.
That's awesome.
Sounds great. Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Any questions with our mentors?
I just think it's awesome you guys are doing that.
Mhm.
It's great for the kids, great for you guys. So thank you.
Any of you think you'll be a teacher someday?
No.
This is backfire.
Maybe.
I think that I wouldn't want to be a teacher, but I would love to work with kids.
I don't think I have the patience. All like the little kids and everything.
That's why you teach middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can yell at me.
I know a couple weeks ago there was a change 1 point, so like a bunch of them got to go out with recess, and then we got word from the recess parapros. It's like, "Oh my gosh, can you send them down more often?" Yes, it was the best recess of the year. So, but yeah, so like I said, very, very blessed to have these guys. It's proof of why I've got an amazing job. And then Cameron is going to talk about in our 7th grade extension classes, when we get to the last marking period or about this time of year, we try to do community service projects. And so Kendallin and a few friends came up to me, and Kendallin was kind of the brains behind it and had this idea. And so they had thought through things, and all right, come up with your plan, do everything, we went through all the steps, and it's made something really cool happen musically between our 2 buildings. Yeah.
So, in our first hour, like Mr. Siebert explained, we're doing community service, trying to do something about our school or the community in general. So me and a friend, Nick Moses, we decided we could do something for band. So we came up with an idea to play for the elementary kids. Just pick a few days, play for them, and then to help out the community, we would show around the 4th graders any percussion instruments we had with us when we were to perform. So maybe get them interested in the percussion form but wanted to join band once they get into middle school, helping out Mrs. Stout when they get there. And when we first started it, there was a form sent out which was 3 songs for what we were gonna play. And we've been practicing those during rehearsals, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, throughout the week. Isaiah's actually part of that too. And we just have a bunch of kids, mainly 7th grade and a few 8th graders that help us out with that weekly. And then Mrs. Stout's gonna help us conduct with that too. We're still trying to figure out dates and everything, but as a team, we're kind of just helping out the elementary, giving them a mini concert.
That's cool.
I said, that was completely student-led, student done, it was just they come to me when, we just need approval for this, okay, yep. That's good, we check this, and this, and, yeah, like I said, just, again, we have amazing kids, so it is very, very cool. So that's why, I mean, rocking my Ted Lasso Believe socks, that's something that we often, we have our sign in our office, you know, the whole mantra there is believe and believe, not believe in people. So, that's what it is. There's a lot of good, lot of good. So that's what we try to make sure we celebrate. That's what you see, and I love the fact that I got a text last Friday, from a parent coming by, like, I love it when I drive by on Fridays and see kids dancing their way in. Last week we had basically like a Soul Train tunnel. It was awesome. it was fantastic. We got some fifth graders that love to dance. So, but again, just that, and it was great because she goes, "Can you imagine Mr. Longini out there dancing?" I said, maybe, but no, probably not. But yeah, like I said, trying to make sure we end, you know, get through every day positively, make sure we end it every week on a high note. And just, you know, so I put to the staff yesterday, with our weekly email, so we have 17 days of contact with students. How are we gonna maximize that? You know, yep, it's fun, maybe do a countdown, some of that, but my idea is, we got this many days. You know, you don't know when time runs out, so maximize it. You know, and focus on amazing things like this. So, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you very much. The small things like that, you don't know how big they really become for a young kid like that.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Cool. So nice.
And it feels good too, don't it?
It's amazing to be able to help out little kids like that.
All right.
Good,
You guys
thanks.
can go. Thanks, bud.
Well, we appreciate you. Any questions for Brandon? Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Loads, pretty cool. Mark?
All right. I
Yeah,
don't know how I
I know, right?
Okay, just a quick update. We have Neola items that are on our agenda. This is the second reading for approval. We have an additional item called Policy 5460. We did have some discussion with the Student Relations Committee at our breakfast for graduation, and it was recommended that we put together a policy on handing out diplomas. So that policy has been updated, that is in 5460. This is in place to help us standardize the process as we go forward. Over the years, this has come up several times and has varied in practice. This policy update was recommended to just basically help us standardize the procedure for everyone involved, eliminating any confusion going forward. One of the other set of policies include a revision of the use of tobacco. Several of the policies in this set added language on vaping, developed definitions, and addressed advertising and promotion in regards to these products. Policy 2623 adds language for state testing and reporting. Several of our policies also address technology changes, updates for web accessibility, content, app services, acceptable use policies, and incorporation of artificial intelligence are included in that chat. I think is what it is now, is starting to really become prevalent. So it's out there and it's learning, I guess, at this point. Policy 8390 was also updated to specifically include emotional therapy dogs because of all the schools that are offering this service or getting into this service, including ours. Sinking Fund Millage Past, that's a celebration. From everybody at our school, we'd like to thank our community, staff, and parents. That sinking fund plays a very important process in our school building construction, renovation, and repairs, and without it, general funds would be needed to fix issues, and that puts more strain on the general fund, which is our classrooms and our teachers and students. We would like to thank our community for allowing our district to receive these funds for 4 more years again. So that's big for our school at this point. Diane Hayward is our newest member of our staff. Her contract is on the agenda. joined us last week as a mental health support specialist. She has 30 years plus experience in the field. Her position, again, is funded by 31N grant funds that are available. The state has put out a lot of money for mental health, and that's what we're able to take advantage of. Diane has already started getting to know the students in the high school and the middle school, and is continuing to learn people and learn her new role, working with the rest of the guidance and counselors in our building. Bus radios have all come in and are installed. It's been a long time. No, seriously, they're here. They're not ghost radios. Drivers have been having a good time testing them out too. They take some trips and they go over to Hillsdale and they get out and go to some of the other schools, and they're still able to communicate back over here. So they're like, wow, we're getting quite a bit of range on those. So it's more expansive than was first thought. As the leaves are all coming out, we're trying to figure out if we have any dead spots in any areas, but they're in and they're using them pretty aggressively because we can hear them right here in our office. New unit ventilators, another good piece of news here in the middle school. They've been updated. If you remember, we had some fan issues with the vents that came in. It was like they just pulled people off the streets and installed them, and they were running like high-speed jet engines in the classroom. Lack of a better way to put it. So there's a lot of airflow being pumped out there. So our engineer was working with the company that built those unit vents. They provided a solution, so they came in, they pulled out all the fans and replaced them with brand new ones, and now, you know, we've gotten some emails where we had a couple of teachers walk in the room and, is that on? And had to walk over there to determine it was on. So that part of it is fixed, they're much quieter, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from teachers. So it's taken a little while, but we're getting there. The last phase we have in this project is to get the air conditioning started. They keep telling us that takes 65 degrees or better. And I'm guessing that's 65 overnight too, because we've hit 70s here fairly consistently. It hasn't been too cold. So we're still waiting for that magic time for them to come in. They're gonna have to come in on the weekend because they have to touch each one of the units in the classrooms to be able to balance them and turn them on, based on what the engineer was telling us. So stay tuned for that. If it stays warm enough, we'll hopefully get those fired up, and maybe we'll have a few days here at the end of the year to test them out and see how the middle school does when pretty much everything in there is air conditioned at this point. Our ionization units are installed throughout the district. We think that we have most of the control issues taken care of. We had to put our foot down on that, if you remember. We have also been out there actively looking at folks that do controls and have a different company that we're looking at right now to come in and manage us going forward. So hopefully that's gonna take care of some of those things that some of those issues we were having with the company we were using at the time. And again, on the agenda, we have the BISD board elections, 2 individuals, Brian Ely from Bronson and Carrie Jakubczak. I'm assuming, did I say that right, or did I butcher it? Sorry if I did, okay. From Coldwater have filed to run, and I don't know if this is a good time or not to do you wanna say something real quick? Or-
Yeah, that'll work.
Hi, I'm Carrie Jakubczak. I am from Coldwater, and I just wanted to come tonight and introduce myself and put a name with a face. And I'm excited to be part of the Branch ISD board and really get to know and learn all about all the schools in Branch County. So appreciate your time and your support. So thank you.
All right, and that's all I have. So,
Okay, well, no, you're next, I'll wait on that one then. I had a question about that. That's more of a bench question. Anybody have questions for it? It's good, we got certified people to put those next level names. But I get it. All right, moving on. Ready?
Sure. So I will probably keep it pretty short. Regular report, I'm working on finalizing this year's budget as well as starting next year's budget, and I will have that by the end of this fiscal year. Our revenues we've received the majority of our tax dollars. Hopefully there's still some lingering out there, but if we can get them in the near future, that usually trickles in over the summer. usually June, there's another payment that comes in from the locals. But we have the majority of those tax dollars, and our state aid is coming in as usual. We still have a few more months where that comes in through September, that goes on this year's budget, or in this year's, revenues. Expenditures are right where we would expect to see them. The big chunk for capital outlay has been mostly paid out for the HVAC project. Reminder that is ESSER funded. So in addition to that, as I'm working through the budget, one of my priorities is to kind of finalize that HVAC project and see what we have left in our ESSER 3. We've already spent ESSER 2. There is probably going to be some leftover for ESSER 3. We still have another year with what is called the Tidings Amendment, which allows us to expend past that grant deadline, which would be September 30th. So likely, but it's just based on, mostly based on our expenditures where we plugged in the intervention strategies, the class size reduction teachers. If they didn't elect insurance or things like that, where we didn't spend money we were anticipating to spend. So there's probably some money in there, and that's what I'm gonna work on finalizing, and then probably in June, I'll come back and ask you guys if you have ideas for how we spend that remainder. I have ideas, everyone has ideas, so kind of figure out what our actual number is and go from there on that. Yeah, and the rest seems to be pretty good for this year. We're pretty well on track with the amended budget. Well, like I said, we are supposed to be wrapping up purchases this week. As I prepare for new auditors to come in, I have made contact with them. We have some scheduled dates. They're gonna be doing a preliminary audit on the 29th of June, and then the actual audit will be the last week of July, which is fairly typical from previous firms. So I have spoken with them and got them some initial information, and so they are prepped and ready to go. Seem like nice folks. I also wanted to touch on the sinking fund a little bit. We have a few we'll say vaguely planned ideas for some immediate projects. One being the parking lot, specifically the bus garage. The back side of the bus garage parking lot is, for lack of a better word, completely destroyed. So that needs to be totally ground up and re-asphalted, along with the new drainage system back there to prevent that from happening for a while. That's gonna be a fairly large expense, but one that is probably necessary. And then along with that, Archie's working on getting some quotes. I think last I knew he had one left to get. We'll probably have to put that out for bid, because that back to the bus garage is gonna be quite expensive, but, we're gonna work on that and then patch up some of the spots and maybe even top coat the whole high school parking lot is one of the planned, we'll call them immediate expenditures out of the sinking fund. And then also, we would like to work on getting an electronic sign in the high school. We've been talking about it for a while. We're gonna try and move on that at some point in the near future. So those are just a couple things out of the sinking fund that we're going to attempt to do this summer. That is really it. Like I said, working on the budget and negotiations. The other one I did want to hit on was the 31N is grant funded, that Diane, the mental health support specialist, she is being paid through 31N, and that is actually ran through the ISD, so they get all the money, we pay for Diane, and then we request those funds back from them. Usually do it quarterly. Tamara down here in the elementary is also fully funded through 31N. There is a fairly substantial increase coming to us. It just goes through the ISD. And as Diane had mentioned, there's talk with the revenue the conference that we will have a much more locked in state budget number, hopefully at the end of this week or early next week. They've given, the governor, the House, and the Senate have given their proposals, and they're all fairly similar. From what I've seen, there's mostly the categoricals like at-risk funding, other special ed funding, where they don't necessarily line up exactly. They've all pegged a foundation increase as well, so for budgeting purposes, as of right now, I've got 5% plugged in as an increase, just to the foundation allowance.
Right.
But that could vary a little bit when it's all said and done. Hopefully, like I said, by the end of this week or early next week, we'll know an exact number. That'll be lovely. That's all I've got, unless you have questions.
Asphalt project, is that, Archie, thank you, Archie, a number from Jay Miller, did you contact him?
I think so, I'm not positive though.
Cause I put a bug in there, told him,
Yeah.
I asked if he's been contacted, at the last meeting I talked to him, he said no, I said, well, we'll put a bug in there to call you.
Yeah, and we're probably gonna have to take that out for bid anyway, so
Right.
I can call over because I used to work there too.
Really?
So I don't know, Jay.
Gonna make much,
Yeah.
they don't do it for the,
We'll definitely send out the RFP information to them.
cause they just gotta cover their costs basically, so it should be a savings, I would hope. On
I know.
either one of those projects, behind the bus garage or the.
I know Archie's reached out to several local private companies just to get a quote and see where we're at.
Most of them aren't expensive, it's just the bus garage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, yeah.
And that whole
we-
section down here by
The
high
drive.
school gym, yeah.
It's been a bit. Percentages, since we've got more repairs completed, have we issued any more to the contractor for the project?
They had, sent in writing a sworn statement that they were not going to pay Night Watch until they fixed their side of the issues. So we were okay at that point with getting out that money to those contractors. Cause we didn't really have issue with the other ones, other than the fans not working correctly. The main issues were with the controls and Night Watch, and, Bengal sent out a sworn statement saying they were gonna withhold payment from them until the issues were fixed, so. We have issued payment, we are caught up, there's still a little bit left out there.
Yeah, cause
to
it's
do
still
the,
test AC, yeah.
To do the walkthrough and test the AC, so,
Okay, that's what I was wondering, we still got something.
yep. We're
Hold-
still,
hold
yeah, we
something.
still got a little bit of a carrot to dangle.
And then, I hear, when you talk about sinking fund, roof schedules, is that on anybody's forefront?
That's on our mind, we have stuff to figure out, we had a little bit of trouble locating some of the, warranty information on some of the roofs, so we wonder if they're probably expired at this point. But, yeah, we have a vague plan in place to get on replacing some of
And I
those.
can't remember if it was, it might have been, no, not Archie, not,
Josh?
no, before Josh, Jeff. No, before Jeff. Rocky, I think Rocky had a schedule, I thought.
We have something, it's probably not ideal, but I think it's a good base to go off of from where
Okay.
we know what we've,
Approximate dates.
Yeah.
On each patch of roof we
yeah,
got.
yeah, and it's quite patchwork, especially.
Well, we have to do
up
it
here.
sections, you
Yeah.
can't afford to do it all at
Right.
once.
So it's, we have a general idea of what needs to be done next.
You know, I just curious on timelines on how close we are to some of those expiring or getting time to.
With the middle school replacement, I think that helped out quite a bit.
Right, I know that was the next one on the radar.
Yeah, so
But I didn't
it's,
know what it was.
I think like the library area around the high school, and I know before Josh left, the cold storage here, what's now the maintenance garage and wrestling room, that was on his agenda, and that's one of those that we don't have a lot of information for when that was put up there or anything, so.
Just those can get expensive fast.
Yes.
Snowballing it fast if you don't keep up on them.
So there were some changes to who was eligible for sinking fund, I believe.
Yeah, apparently,
Thinking specifically about buses. Do I remember that right?
Yeah, we have to add it to your verbiage, I think.
so there something came out after, of course, we got ours approved that said, and it's a little vague, a lot of lawyers speak, so I have not talked to Truman about it, if we're eligible or not, but I think you're right, where you have to have the language in place ahead of time, but there was some clause that added transportation to that. So I don't know if we've missed a vote on that yet, but I'd like to confirm that. Hopefully not, but that is one of the things we may wanna consider for leftover restaurant funds, if that's what it is, so.
It was 2 years ago? Or was it last year?
Last year.
Well, last year we got it, last year we ordered it.
Actually, both. We
Oh.
ordered it in October and then got it in the spring, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so it was all in the same fiscal
It
year.
was in the same fiscal year, it was last fiscal year, which was lucky.
So, yeah, it would be, again,
Mhm.
at least one,
Yep.
to keep the schedule going. 'Cause do we have any, even our backups, how many backups we have, old ones that have left, they gone now? Like the originals,
Oh,
like the old,
I think the oldest one now is from 2014, so we're, not up to date, but it's,
way better than we were.
yeah, we got rid of the 06s or whatever they were.
I don't know, our new one seems to be having more issues again today.
Great.
okay, well, we got radios now, so
There you go. And they're using them.
it's good. I was a little nervous when the police came on, that some of that, we wouldn't be able to reach some of those areas, but so far so good.
So far, it's good, I've heard any complaints.
Awesome.
Did you have an estimate of what the ESSER three leftover is gonna be? Beginning or?
I'm guessing it's gonna be around 100,000, which would be, that's my best guess from what I can tell.
Is that something we could possibly use that on for?
Yeah. It was approved through ESSER two, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be approved through ESSER two. Similar process, they would have to go through state approval first, but I think at this point in the game, he's got a pretty quick turnaround on getting that back to people.
It's crazy how fast those waste in 4 years.
Supposed to go from another 25,000.
Jeez.
Pretty soon.
9% inflation, stop. That's not 9%. Alright, any questions for Ben? Thank you. Good luck with the new auditors. Yeah, they sound like it'd be nice to work with. And I'm glad to hear they're pretty much on schedule.
Yeah, that was,
We didn't fall behind.
no, that was a big concern, so.
Yeah,
Seemed to be all good there.
able to work us in at the right time. Cool. Alright, items from the audience. What's that time we set aside for comments?
I think it's amazing what you do with no money. Absolutely positively amazing. I mean, I look at that budget and I used to work in manufacturing, had a budget a lot more than what you're operating our future with. So, kudos to y'all for doing such a good job with, the money that you have. I'm impressed with Mr. Seaver's middle school children.
Yes.
I really don't like children. I mean, once you get to be about 18, okay, but man, kindergartners smell, and middle school children all have that attitude.
No,
And-
smell.
They smell. Oh my
It's
God,
just
they
different.
smell. But that's a different smell. And high schoolers just know everything, and I don't know how you all do it all. And I think that our teachers are amazing. Back in the day, we didn't have all of the things that students have now. We didn't have electronics, we didn't have instant gratification, we didn't have all the things that are calling to our students. I mean, the worst drug we had was marijuana. I mean, come on, for crying out loud. And these kids have all of these things coming at them all the time. And it's a noisy world that we live in. And to hear these young people say, hey, I really enjoyed going out for recess. I'm giving back, and I enjoy receiving back, and I enjoy giving. That is phenomenal. And we don't hear enough about that. We hear about, oh, this child vaped, and this child did this, and we cut class, and my grandnephew's got D's, and all of these things that are horrible. And it's true, he does have D's. You don't have to put that in the record. But it's because he didn't turn in his homework. But all of these things, and these children are doing phenomenal things. And I don't think that Greg's daughter just got a scholarship. I mean, it's amazing what these children are doing. And it's because of the board, the administration, the teachers, and everybody working together to give these children an environment in which they can learn. Okay? You can't motivate the child, you can give the environment so that they feel motivated. And I think y'all do a phenomenal job. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, with no money, by the way. Just thought I'd add that.
Thank you.
Probably gonna get in trouble for this, but that's all right. As usual. Go ahead and start my clock here. It was my oldest that got a scholarship. Yep, $5,000, the Wendorf
Awesome.
scholarship, so pretty proud of him, and his additional other scholarships that he received. And he did get a great education here at Quincy. As to my other son, who scored a 1460 on his SAT for the first time, and he's trying to get a perfect score, which he may attempt to get.
Oh my gosh.
And so Quincy is a great school, but there are some things that are going on here that we need to fix, and unfortunately, we're not hearing about them at the board meetings. And so there just are things that we're not talking about, and things that we need to improve on. And I'm gonna save my sob story because I know all of you already know, but there are things that are going on that you don't know. I know I've sent you emails. There are other parents that send you emails, and the more I'm out and about, more and more and more people come to me and tell me what their story is. And so I'm just going to encourage you to read them and read them fully, because this board is responsible for this school. This board has to know what's going on, and it's your job to know. And if you don't know, you can be held liable for not knowing. So you have to read those emails, and you have to be involved, and you have to get into the school and know what's going on. And you have to ask Mark questions, and you have to ask Al questions, and you have to ask the principal questions. Because it can come back around and hurt you in the long run if you don't. And that's what you signed up to do when you got on this board. And so my heart is just asking you, please, this community elected you to do a job, and we're begging you to do it. Because there are things happening that you just don't know about. It's called deliberate indifference, known or should have known. Something you should look up. And government immunity is only going to take you so far. Because if you knew about it, or should have known about it, it doesn't cover you. And the sinking funds is going to do us no good if we don't have federal funds, because they've taken our funds away because we've done too many things wrong. And so, I love this school. My kids are begging to stay here. They want to stay here, but I don't know that I can leave them here. So this may be the last little bit, hurrah. I love you guys, but here's the same kindergarten. JPO, the board. I've served on every committee I can think of here. And people are destroying it. And you guys are allowing me to do it.
Anyone else? Alright. 5.1, BISD biennial election result, resolution, sorry, number 2.
I move to approve the designation of Aaron Basie as our representative of the school board electoral body, which body will elect one candidate for vacancy to the ISD board on Monday, June 5th, and Al McClung as the alternate representative. In the event the designated representative is unable to attend.
Been moved and seconded, any further discussion? Is this a resolution to sit at, we'll do roll call, right?
Yes, yes.
We need to name the
That's what I'm wondering.
candidate.
All on the same
It's
one?
about to name the candidates on there, right?
I mean, the board needs to decide who they're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 2 candidates and 2 spots, so.
I'm not gonna be able to pronounce her name. Carrie, what she said.
Thank you.
I don't know the other gentleman, I don't know either one of them, is it, who's the other person, do you know Aaron? And qualified candidate? Only candidate?
Yeah. Well, 1 and 2.
Well, correct, for 2 spots.
For 2 spots. And they were both set out by Mike Hoffner, who's stepping down, so.
So you wanna put both those in the motion? With the motion?
He did, I just said it before.
Okay.
And I got it, yep, I got it.
You got it? Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. BSD budget approval. I want that budget.
Accept the Branch Intermediate School District 23-24 budget as presented.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying. Oh, it is? Budget approved? Alright.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. 5.3, Neola policy approval.
I move to approve the Neola policy updates as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on those? You wanna highlight any more than what you already did? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion passes. 5.4, overnight trips. We do this individually? Or do them all?
I think you're on there all at once, unless there's issues with them, and we do have Chris back there that can comment on them once they get.
Cause the football one's the same, that,
Basketball's going to Adrian,
you know,
and volleyball's going to CMU.
yep, so. And they got plenty of chaperones and we're good there.
Yeah, football's the same as last year. That, I was telling Mark, that was the one that I had the most questions about, just with it being the most amount of kids probably going. But from everything that I've heard, it was super good for the kids and didn't even have the slightest bit of incident. They're doing too much anyway, so that they're tired whenever they do have downtime, that they're not getting into trouble or anything. And that was the kind of questions I had, and it seems like it was a good opportunity for them. The other 2 are short trips, and I think are gonna be really good for the kids. Funding's all taken care of for all 3, so nobody's asking for funding. Football's getting a little help from boosters, basketball and volleyball are coming out of activity accounts, and I think basketball, the kids have to pay just a little bit out of pocket, but it's all parents taking them to and from too, so it also seems like a good opportunity for all three.
And they get some coaching instruction from the staff at these camps as well.
Yeah, so
as our own
it
people.
basically runs as like a big learning day for them, and then there's like games and everything at the end. So they do compete, like just scrimmage wise and things like that. But it's like learning throughout the day, and then they kind of like put to work what they learned throughout the trip.
Multiple schools going to each of these.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, it's good. College exposure too. Just get the kids out there, get their names out there, get them looking at colleges a little bit too. So yeah, it's a good opportunity for everyone.
I move to approve the overnight trips for boys basketball, football, and volleyball athletic camps.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the overnight trips. Any discussion?
On the volleyball one, it says in there, let me find it. Either 2 or 4 chaperones. I would personally like to see 4 go, just to be safe, to make sure there are no issues going on or whatever. Because if some are busy, there's others around and available. That's my 2 cents. I don't think it could hurt. I didn't see in the others. Well, football has a ton of coaches anyways, so I don't know about basketball stuff.
Would that depend at all on how many kids actually sign up and are able to go? Like,
It's,
Cause that's just varsity, it's not varsity.
it says
10 to 15
10 to 15
players.
players.
How many chaperones in addition to staff? Oh, these, okay. Oh, okay, so they're just needed.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're in there and available if needed. I feel like, why not have them be needed just to, can't hurt to have extra people.
so it's better for you.
And maybe they'll learn something they can bring back to those other teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Makes sense.
I can let her know it's approved, and all 4 coaches will need to go to make it happen.
Cool. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. 5.5, resignation.
I move to sadly approve the resignations of David Bach as health PE teacher, Marcy Clancy, sad, as high school secretary, Carol Brandos, elementary arts kiddo, and Jim Lyon, STEAM students.
Support.
And his, let me just go over half his life. How many years did he serve?
We talking
Dave?
30,
Was it just?
31 or 32?
Uh-huh.
92, his first year was
Our first.
freshman.
That's awesome.
Who was?
They almost got thrown right in the stage.
Almost.
Almost.
Well, we've gotten a lot of service out of all these people, and it'll be difficult to replace.
Mhm.
Appreciate their service very, very much.
Mrs. McConnell was my kindergarten teacher, and then she ended up being Cody's. Courtney just missed her, but I was pleasantly surprised she was still there when we walked in the door. Yep. All right, no further questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. 5.6, mental health support specialist contract.
I move to make a motion to approve the contract for Diane Hayward as school mental health support specialist.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved, supported. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion passes. Entertain a motion, closed session for negotiation.
So moved.
Support.
Move support to go into closed session for negotiations at 7:44. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.